So last time we had this call was actually on the anniversary of Rocket Pool's launch, directly on the 15th. So that was pretty exciting. And shortly thereafter, or actually, I think before even that call happened, Ethereum.org had updated their checklist, uh, giving Rocket Pool the full tally of green checks. And so since then, we've had a variety of sort of recognitions about that event, mainly a POAP organized by the beloved Superfizz, who is also, I believe, listening in. Uh, so shout out to the POAPathon Discord server, Superfizz, and Patricio for organizing what at first seemed like just a generic celebratory POAP. This POAP was using the checkout feature, so users had to pay $5 to get the POAP, and so long POAP and Rocky Pool had a long history, so there's a fervent desire for these. So many community members were willing to pay the $5 fee. And for reference, or in addition, that $5 went to the Grants and Bounties Committee, so a very good place. However, just today, Superfizz and Patricio announced that they had refunded the fee for the POAP and actually sent in additional RPL, as well as soon to be hosting a raffle. So before we get into the meat and bones, I just want to say happy 1 year once again. If you have that POAP, check your wallet. You might have a little surprise and check out or keep an eye out for those raffles. So, in the protocol's numbers, growth has been steady over the past couple of weeks. We've had annualized growth in rETH consistent, or with annual growth rate in rETH supply, mini pool count, and effective RPL staked in the sort of 70 to 100% range. The most interesting, I think, metric of these past couple of weeks has been on the rETH peg or soft peg as it is, because it is currently floating above that peg. rETH, I believe, right now is trading at a 1.8% premium. Uh, Darren, do you want to talk about how rETH exists in relation to its soft peg and what the premium means for the protocol generally?
Yeah. So the obviously the peg is kind of based on market dynamics. It's not really necessarily something that we can kind of control. The exchange rate for rETH is actually in the rETH contract itself. And so that gets reported every single day, what the kind of actual exchange rate is. But there is a massive demand for rETH at the moment. So that's kind of ramping up and ramping up, and so that's causing this liquidity premium because of kind of like this massive demand. So one of the things that's kind of probably helping the situation is the arbing that's going on with the deposit pool. Although it's a little bit frustrating because we we want to try and get for people to get their deposits in there. It actually is kind of helping to bring that or to kind of control that premium a little bit. But yeah, so it is a positive thing to a certain degree because it does mean that there's a huge amount of demand. And once Atlas kind of comes online early next year, that kind of premium will soften because of the extra kind of capacity that the new node operators and the current node operators will be able to provide. But yeah, so that's so overall it's a positive thing. Although it's something that people need to be aware of when they kind of buy from the secondary market, that there is this kind of slight premium, and it may kind of pull back slightly as more capacity goes into the deposit pool.
That's right. I think for new users looking to enter at rETH, it's important to be mindful of where exactly the price point you're entering at is, and how you play out the future based on that. Uh, for some perspective, the rETH peg, while it sits at a 1.8% premium, has outperformed the LSD market. In the recent market crash, Lido Steth dropped to about a 1.5% discount. So it was interesting to see almost a perfect inversion around the pegs between the two assets going up and down. But it also speaks to sort of the resiliency of the user base, the lack of overzealous leverage for rETH, uh, and an overall safer experience for users.
And actually, like one thing that we kind of, I guess, need to be mindful of is we actually don't know what's going to happen to a certain degree with Atlas coming online. It may well be that, well, it's actually very likely that rETH demand will still kind of outstrip node
Oh,
operator
that's right.
demand,
Yeah.
or node operator supply.
Mhm.
Um, and so we may actually still have a premium kind of going forward as well.
That's
Um,
right. While we are trying to increase the ability of Rocket Pool to onboard rETH, there's also going to be this ever increasing wave of overall staking demand. And Rocket Pool presents probably the most compelling product on the market, so it's going to attract a lot of demand.
yeah, exactly.
So, moving on now to the Smart Node. Version 1.7.1 is almost ready for release, but will be delayed slightly to catch some new updates. I believe Besu is out soon. There's always these pesky last minute uh, updates to the smart node are necessary before we get these patches out. Joe, unfortunately, is not here with us, but will be available next week to talk a bit more in detail about the smart node.
I think the last I heard this morning was Besu might not be included in that release.
Got it.
Um, but Joe's going ahead, I think, with the release. So I think look out for that.
Yeah, I believe Joe also put out in the Discord sort of how to manually update if you wanted to keep on top of things.
Yeah,
So,
that's it.
yeah. Work has also started on version 1.8, which will hopefully, or sorry, version 1.8 beta, which will be able to support Lodestar, a new client, and sorry, Lodestar and Nimbus split modes. I'm actually not sure on the grammatical context here. Does this mean that it will be support the Lodestar client or split mode for Lodestar?
So it's split mode for it's split mode for Nimbus,
Got it.
but it's you know compatible with the well it'll introduce Lodestar as a client.
Perfect.
So
Lodestar.
for Nimbus users, that basically means that you'll be able to do like a fallback because currently with everything being in one process, we can't really do like a fallback support that we do with pretty much every other client. With with this release, it means that you'll be able to kind of use a fallback.
That'll make life a lot easier on some people. Another important issue for node operators is that the MEV grace period is now ending. So the grace period was to ensure that the node fee recipient addresses were set correctly, uh, and now incorrect configurations that result in priority fees and MEV being stolen will now be penalized. So this is going to be important for protecting rETH APR, so that node operators don't try to just exit their validators if they get a lottery block.
Yeah, so this is really important yeah, for a number of reasons. But firstly, it's important because half the collateral that a node operator is using is actually belongs to rETH holders. So rETH holders need to get their fair share um, of priority fees and MEV. The other aspect of it is to make sure that rETH is competitive against centralized kind of liquid staking options, and that's obviously really important so that we give decentralization a chance against the centralized providers. So that they're the kind of like the two good reasons for doing it. The things I should probably clarify with this, or the only thing that's happening is that we're checking to make sure that the fee recipient is set correctly. Now, depending on what how you're set up, that could be that it's pointing at your fee distributor, or if you're part of the smoothing pool, it could be the smoothing pool. So they're the only two addresses that it really should be set to, and so it's just basically checking that. What we're actually doing or with that announcement is just announcing the starting point at which the check will start, essentially. We're not actually implementing that. So the penalties are already implemented in the smart contracts, but they're not implemented in the ODAR watchtowers just yet. That will come soon. So although you won't get immediately penalized, you will get penalized eventually because that feature will be introduced into the watchtower. So yeah, that's the kind of where we're at the moment. One thing I should say is that we're not enforcing at this stage that everyone uses an MEV relay, although we do recommend that people do use an MEV relay, particularly kind of regulated or non-censoring relays, if you're comfortable kind of doing that within your jurisdiction. So that's so we do recommend that people do use MEV relays, but we currently it's up to the node operator. At some point, we will make it mandatory to use a MEV relay, but that's not now, and that comes later.
People in the community have recently been a bit concerned about the high percentage of Rocket Pool node operators that are running censorship compatible or censorship compliant relays. However, this trend sort of relates also to the Flashbot's dominance in the relay market, especially in relation to how profit maximalist many users are. And recent writings out from the Flashbots team, including the open sourcing of their builder, as well as the released maybe not 20 minutes ago article by Hasu, in which an idea has been proposed to incorporate a minimum fee for any outsourcing blocks, which should then prioritize vanilla block building. I expect this number to fall relatively soon. So I just want to echo some concerns in the community that they are valid. However, Rocket Pool is in a very good position to ameliorate the issue before it gets to anything concerning. And at the moment, censorship on Ethereum is not concerning. Users can use Tornado Cash very easily with a minimal hindrance, if any. So as we progress towards MEV enforcement, keep in mind that MEV itself is getting less and less dangerous per se for the Ethereum protocol, but Rocket Pool being so aligned will definitely be focused on the health of the network in making such decisions.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So that article is actually an open tab on my machine at the moment. That is something that we are very, very closely kind of monitoring. As you said, the censorship level is not in a concerning kind of place, but the incentives do need to shift a little bit so that because it is high. This kind of approach may well be kind of an answer that they can implement reasonably quickly.
Yep.
There's also obviously the inclusion lists and that sort of thing, which I think are more of a long-term thing. So there are kind of and when we were at DevCon, censorship resilience was the highest priority that they were talking about. So it's definitely something that we're keeping an eye on, and as soon as there's kind of solutions to these things, we'll be including them in the smart node stack. so that node operators can use them and benefit Ethereum and themselves.
Speaking of benefiting Ethereum and themselves, uh, Ramana.eth has developed the Rocket Arbs smart contract, which enables users to benefit from the rETH premium if they are launching validators. So what Rocket Orb does at a high level is when you deposit a mini pool, because rETH currently sits at a premium, your deposit into or for a validator creates 16 ETH of space in the deposit pool, which allows users or whoever gets there first to mint 16 rETH at the exact value it's supposed to be worth without premium. Users, whoever is able to mint this first, if you are using Rocket Arb, this will essentially guarantee you the right to mint the rETH either through a flash loan or through capital you already have. You will be able to immediately mint rETH and then sell it on a DEX and sort of pocket that premium difference. Currently, with the premium hovering around 2%, that is zero 0.3 ETH as a sort of bonus, a Black Friday discount, if you will, on launching a validator. So that pays for gas and some of just pure profit on top.
Yeah, node operators that are spinning up mini pools now. Well, even if they're thinking about spinning up spinning up mini pools. So as we said before, we may or may not have a premium once Atlas goes online. So people really should be capitalizing on this now. This is money that's on the table. Probably maybe for a short period of time, we don't know. But if you're thinking about spinning up mini pools, now is a very, very good time for multiple reasons to kind of do it and use the ARB contract.
That's right. Just to speak to your point about the premium maybe not lasting so long, there was a discussion today by the IMC members about reducing some of the incentives to sort of bring the rETH price a bit closer to peg, as there's a good amount of liquidity concentrated around the exact peg value. So, ironically, reducing the premium on rETH would actually increase the liquidity for it.
Yeah, that's sensible.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely, if you can take advantage of the premium, you certainly should. And to my knowledge, over 100 mini pools have been launched with the contract, netting users probably a grand total of over 20 ETH, which is pretty incredible. This also speaks to sort of what will become a long-term staple in liquid staking derivatives overall, which is the ability to arbitrage uh, price deviations from pegs by either launching mini pools or withdrawing them. Since we are sort of in the pre-withdrawal era, this is a one street only, and since Rocket Pool is one of the rare supply capped LSDs, it is pretty much the only one that can take advantage of premiums like this. So it's a pretty cool symbiosis that Ramana and other community members have managed to put together here.
Yeah, a big kind of congratulations and those guys have done an amazing job.
Any rough idea about what the timeline would be like to incorporate this directly into the smart node?
So I think Joe has already been talking to people about this. I think we will probably add it as like a plugin, but it will kind of once it's installed, it will act just like a normal command. So but we're kind of working through some of that at the moment. I think Joe has a outline of how that would work. So no, I don't think it's going to be too long. We're keeping Joe very busy with kind of Atlas stuff, and obviously there's some client update stuff that's going on at the moment. But we'll certainly it's certainly a priority because of the fact that it it obviously promotes the spinning up of mini pools, and of the fact that it's just good for node operators.
It also, once you know the contract exists, it really hurts to see those MAV bots just profiting. I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but every time I see
Yeah,
that bot come, it hurts a little.
it does.
So does that mean that the plugin would not have to go through audits before it's released?
I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. Because it's a plugin.
Got it. Oh,
I
that's
think
all.
I think that was I think that was some of the reason for doing that.
Yeah, that's some nice little bread there. Good to hear. I think I agree with that, given the relative simplicity of the contract overall. Honestly, though I'm not qualified in any way to speak on smart contract security.
Are you going to be an auditor?
No, not even. Unfortunately, we don't have Kane here to someone actually to speak on it. That is exciting. I encourage if you are looking at spinning up a validator, check out Rocket Arb. There is a GitHub that Romana put together that describes it. We have a couple of questions that are coming in from Discord. Zero is asking the generic when LEB 8s, since we're on the topic of timelines.
Yeah. So timeline wise, I think we've got the so obviously we're doing internal testing at the moment, but also Sigma Prime have started their kind of audit. So they're doing that audit at the moment. We may actually get them in again a bit later. But so at the moment we're doing a combination of internal testing and Sigma Prime auditing. In kind of early to mid January, we've got another audit with consensus diligence booked in, and so we'll go through kind of that audit. Once we've kind of done our internal testing and that sort of thing, we'll probably push it to Gorelli kind of in January, so that everyone can kind of start using it, start testing it out from a community perspective. Once we've done the consensus audit, I think we might have a very last one with Sigma, and then, although that's still to be decided, and then we're kind of ready to go. So I would say February is probably is when we're going to do it. I think saying late January is too early because we need to get the audit finished and any changes kind of rectified and that sort of thing. So so about February is looking quite good for releasing it.
That's awesome timing, broadly for Ethereum, since that will be prior to the Shanghai withdrawal upgrade, meaning that users and Rocket Pool will be able to strengthen the node operator base before we have what I am expecting to be an overwhelming flood of rETH demand that will probably bring us back to saturation. So great to hear that everything is chugging along. And we have a couple more questions, both of these coming in from Ken.
Sorry, one sec before we move on from that.
Yep.
I think it's also good because what it will do is it's kind of like a staged approach as well in terms of our scaling. So once we release Atlas, it means that the current 16. No, they won't. Sorry, no, I'm backtracking because of withdrawals. So I was more talking about kind of withdrawals. So what it will mean is that people will be able to spin up new 8 ETH mini pools. People who have got current existing ones will probably have to wait until withdrawals because of the whole skimming, the whole skimming stuff. So that doesn't kind of, but so when withdrawals does hit, it means that those current 16 ETH mini pools can be migrated, and we get the extra benefit of like solo migration as well, which may well be kind of a slightly slower burn, but we're kind of looking at how we can kind of ramp that up in terms of media and that sort of thing at that point.
Exciting time, exciting stuff, exciting stuff. So Ken is asking if we can have an update on the job posting slash recruitment status, as I believe this was discussed briefly during the chit chat last Friday that unfortunately not many people were able to attend.
Yeah, I think my answer from the chit chat is basically the same. We're you know we're buried in this Atlas stuff at the moment. Like the internal testing and all that sort of thing is you know having kind of swamping the whole team. So we're not able to do anything on it at the moment. The idea is to get a PD ready for kind of put it out on a job site and that sort of thing. But
A PD,
hiring,
sorry, was that?
sorry, a position description.
Mm.
Um, so the tricky part about hiring is that you obviously need to hire, but you're also very busy. So and hiring is actually very kind of time consuming. So we have to kind of fit it in when we can. When once the internal testing is done, we will have a bit more time to kind of devote to that. So I'm kind of uh, it's probably going to be a couple of weeks, and then we should be over that hump of kind of the internal testing and the first part of the audits and that sort of thing.
Good to know. It's something that the community is always clamoring about is the ability to increase the team size, but it also is inherently going to detract from the other priority. So it is a very complex balancing act. Ken was also wondering if there are any ETH Denver plans that you can know about. I believe Rocket Pool is now an official sponsor of ETH Denver.
Go, Mav.
Sweet. Yeah, we have a contract, which is great. They had confirmed us previously, but wanted to get something a little bit more official before we started kind of progressing down the line of looking in accommodation, flights, all of that. It's a relatively high tier sponsorship, which is great. I think it aligns well with our ambitions for the event. So the ETH Denver channel and Discord, which hasn't got a whole lot of love since it's been created, will hopefully be getting a bit busier. Probably repeating myself at this point. It's been mentioned once or twice before, but we're looking to get up, for example, a volunteer roster if people are keen to maybe help out at the Rocket Pool booth, and to start organising our own events during the time, specifically for the Rocket Pool community, a mix of potentially social and also educational events. So we're very excited. Also aware that it's really not that far away, considering there's a little bit of a holiday break in between. But the momentum will definitely start picking up. So keep an eye out on that channel in Discord. Otherwise, we'll probably be posting a couple of high level updates on Twitter, but Discord is definitely the place to go to if you want to be more involved with Rocket Pool at ETH Denver. And do make sure you check out the ETH Denver site with regards to the event, how to attend, and the likes. From the sounds of things, there is extremely high demand. From what I hear from Ken and others, the previous event was at a much smaller venue, and it was relatively crowded. This year they've gone to a larger venue, and even still, we're hearing there's somewhere in the region of kind of 250 companies and protocols on the waiting list to attend as paid sponsors, I believe that is. So, yeah, we might be in a bear market, but the Ethereum community and ecosystem seems to be only stronger than ever, which is pretty great to see. So, looking forward to meeting a few people in the audience, hopefully at ETH Denver, and spreading the word about Rocket Pool, as we've said before, and echoing some of what Langers has said earlier in this call, the timing works out quite well for us around LEVs and withdrawals kind of being on the horizon at that point. So yeah, we're planning to make a bit of a splash. You'll expect to see a bit of orange around the place. And yeah, between now and then, going to be head down, working on coordinating everything from down here in New Zealand, which will be fun.
If you are listening in, if you are an active member in trading, your knowledge about Rocket Pool will be invaluable. I guarantee you, by your passive participation in the protocol, you will be a relative savant compared to the average conference goer, which makes you a very useful asset uh, in Rocket Pool setting up events. So even if you don't think you will be useful, uh, if you are here listening to this call, you are definitely going to be useful. So I encourage you, if you are attending, to try to sign up. Rocket Pool's brand is effectively unimpeachable. So expect lots of love coming your way. I remember Langers telling a story about how he stepped out of the taxi cab, and moments thereafter, someone literally shouted "Rocket Pool" to him. So it's going to be an incredible event.
And to add on, it's not only please help out, but we'll certainly have some thank you gifts for anyone who can spare a bit of time for the protocol.
Good deeds often go rewarded in this community. So jumping back to the bi-weekly update, because we still have quite a bit to get through here. There has been a lot of discussion about 1-inch integration. So while the deposit pool remains full, the UX around getting rETH is a bit wonky, and getting a direct 1-inch integration would make things a bit smoother, despite giving up a bit of protocol neutrality. Any updates about how this integration is going?
Yeah, it's a sad story, unfortunately.
Oh no.
So I think Wack mentioned during the chit chat last week that 1-inch is actually geofenced with the US, and after kind of reviewing their terms and conditions and all this sort of thing, it is going to be difficult for us at our current. It's going to be difficult for us to integrate 1-inch. So even though basically all the development stuff's done, so there are some options, and so we're just kind of figuring out what the best kind of approach is, assessing it from the different angles. So that, I mean, we're only really kind of just that's just kind of sinking in. So we have to, but there are a couple of options or a couple of approaches that we could take to it. We're just evaluating each one to see which one's kind of the best one.
It's an unfortunate problem. 1-inch has had a history of some of these strange aspects, one might say. This geofencing being one of them, and also a history of positive slippage. So if 1-inch ends up being a barrier that we cannot overcome, I think we can still navigate around it.
Yeah, I think it's a bit annoying because pretty much nobody else does this. Like
Yeah,
Uniswap, Balancer, all the underlying liquidity sources don't do it. I think even like I've looked at like Matcha as like a router as well, and they don't do it either. There's a thing that they could be doing it because they're releasing a US based product. So it's not necessarily a kind of a regulation perspective, but more a product decision.
Mhm.
But it does tie our hands quite a bit. So yeah, we're trying to figure out how to approach that.
Paraswap is another aggregator, so might be worth looking into. And since the code for integrating the deposit pool for burns and mints has been done for one DEX, perhaps that can be useful into another one. So we shall see. But yes, that is definitely sad news on that front. The UX might have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, I think we've kind of, as I said, there's a lot that we can reuse. So it's not like a big throwaway or anything. There's a lot that we can use, and from like a the user flow perspective, all that's basically going to be the same. It's just we just need to kind of figure out whether we can swap another one in, or essentially what do we do in this situation.
Mm-hmm. So, moving on now to governance topics. The IMC has deployed its first partnership on Uniswap. This is a trial for concentrated liquidity on Uniswap v3 in partnership with Gamma. There's been lots of discussions about how this partnership has been going on in the rETH liquidity incentives Discord channel. So if you are curious, I recommend checking that out. However, TVL quickly accumulated, and the pool has been stable since. The Optimism tokens have also been deployed to bribe Beethoven and Velodrome. These tokens, the Beethoven pool was pre-existing, and so this has just quite seamlessly increased APR for many existing users. The Velodrome pool is relatively new, and is a slightly different DEX. Beethoven is a balancer fork, whereas Velodrome was based on Solidly. And so emissions for Velodrome and rewards are all paid in the Velo token. So if you are interested in pursuing these Optimism token rewards through rETH on Optimism, I recommend checking out the details of the two DEXs before you decide which one you go with. However, it's definitely nice that these tokens have been received and are now being used.
Yeah, so that the with the OP incentives, that is being rolled out over 6 months. So that'll kind of go. I think we received like 600,000 OP tokens, and they're kind of being split between those two liquidity sources kind of over the next 6 months. The incentives will actually kind of ramp up, and that's mainly because obviously at the moment we've got a pretty significant premium, so we don't want to kind of exacerbate that too much. And so it's kind of on a lower scale at the moment. But as we said, as Atlas kind of gets released and that sort of thing, we'll be kind of ramping that up over time.
The GMC has been getting some proposals coming in onto the governance forum. MISO Finance has in a proposal about leveraged rETH through Compound ETH. Patches has put up a proposal about the rescue node. I recommend everyone check out. And even, surprise, surprise, a European blockchain association member has requested funding for a full-time lobbyist. So definitely some pretty interesting stuff coming up for the GMC. I recommend people go check it out because, again, RPL from inflation will be used to fund these endeavors. So you as a node operator have a vested interest in making sure that these funds are being used wisely. Joe also made a post on the forum about a proposed change to the Watchtower and related to the reward street process. This is a bit technical and related to security of the overall protocol and how the ODAO functions. Any comments about this, Darren?
Yeah, so this is actually some feedback that we got kind of from the community and from the ODAO themselves as well. So I think Noshua certainly raised this with me. So there are within the smart node stack, there is essentially two elements to it. There's or two areas. The first area is where most node operators use, and that's the smart node stack that runs all the stuff you need as a node operator. But actually within there's another component which most people don't use, except for the ODAO, which is the watchtower. And the watchtower actually runs all of the protocol aspects, the duties of the ODAO. Now, there is a difference between how we should be treating those two things. So the ODAO watchtower is really kind of the protocol. It is part of the protocol. It's the same as the smart contracts themselves. The smart contracts obviously go through kind of like an auditing process, and all of the changes are open source, and they were kind of reviewed somewhat by the community, or at least the community and the ODAO have an opportunity to kind of review them. It's the same sort of thing with the watchtower, but it's not quite treated exactly the same. We almost bundle it in with the smart node stack, and we release them quite quickly. So what this means is that the community and the ODAO don't necessarily have as much time to kind of review those changes. And because they're kind of part of the actual protocol themselves, they should. So that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been talking about recently, is that we should have different release cadences for the smart node changes and the ODAO kind of protocol changes. So that's what we're going to do, is we're kind of going to separate those two things out a little bit more, so that when there is an ODAO or a protocol change, we will kind of announce that, make sure that the ODAO are across it, make sure that the community know that it's coming, and then essentially schedule it in from a slot or a block perspective, pretty much the same as what Ethereum does in terms of hard forks. So that's what we're kind of doing at the moment, and that's just to give better transparency on what's coming in terms of those changes.
Rolling out updates is a very important process to get right, and having this sort of process broken up into a more auditable fashion is definitely going to be useful, especially for accountability across the different parties. So I'm glad Joe put together this document, and I recommend everyone give it a read. Valdorf has released the period 4 IMC budget, and as I mentioned earlier, there has been a bit of contention about budgets related to the rETH premium. Nashua has suggested that we increase the speed at which we are reducing the amount of incentives on the balancer pool. So by reducing the amount of Aura bribe, potentially we can lower the premium on rETH without impacting liquidity much or at all. So if you have an opinion about that, I suggest leaving a comment on this forum post. Moving on to integrations, a very exciting new integration just went live yesterday, and that is MakerDAO, the long-awaited integration with one of the oldest and most important DeFi protocols. MakerDAO, arguably the crypto bank, allows users to mint DAI against their collateral assets. So users can now use rETH in MakerDAO to mint DAI. Currently, the cap is 5 million DAI, and within 24 hours, 600,000 DAI was minted using rETH. So already an incredible rollout.
Yeah, I think I've certainly enjoyed as much as I love the memes in the kind of waiting for rETH to be to being onboarded onto Maker, I am extremely excited about this integration. It is, as you said, it's kind of been long awaited, but it's certainly something that is a massive, massive milestone for rETH. It's kind of it's not our first lending platform, but it's certainly the biggest kind of lending platform that we're kind of on. And so it really does open up some really significant opportunities and increases rETH's utility by orders of magnitude. So it's a massive, massive step. And there is kind of more to follow. So there's a lot of high profile kind of integrations coming. And so we can increase that utility more and more. So like one of the biggest benefits of rETH is that it's staked ETH that you can use in DeFi. Obviously, you can just hold it if you want to, but you can it also has utility in DeFi as well. So that it certainly maximizes that that advantage. And yeah, it's a great step forward.
Reflecting how important this step forward is, we have had a couple of media pieces put out. The Defiant and Bankless Times both put out articles about how rETH is now being onboarded to the protocol. So the world should take notice, and it indeed is. To go along with the MakerDAO integration, Oasis.app and DeFi Saver are two front ends that are both already supporting users to use rETH. DeFi Saver has a variety of useful tools, including stop loss protection and a variety of tools just useful for managing leverage and debt. So check out DeFi Saver or Oasis if you are interested in using your rETH in Maker. I believe we will be having some calls with them Nick might be able to speak to.
Yeah, that's the one. Langers will be up nice and early tomorrow morning. I think it's 5 a.m. Australia time from memory. But in terms of everyone listening in for your local time zone, as usual, you can check the event section in Discord. So it is about 18 hours or so away. We have an AMA with Oasis, so that'll be on their Twitter Spaces, and there's going to be a lot of topics covered, including I believe they're making a POAP available for all attendees. Haven't actually checked in with them if they're recording this, so maybe I should do that, and I'll let everyone know. Hopefully, if it doesn't work out for your time zone, there's a way to catch it later on. Although when Australia has to wake up that early, it usually means the rest of the world is a pretty good time for them. So it'd be great to see some good attendance there from the Rocket Pool community.
I'm definitely going to want that POAP. We have a question coming in from Dondo. Dondo is asking, what debt ceiling should we aim for long term, and how will we get there? So originally, when we went to MakerDAO, they quoted us as wanting to have 10,000 ETH liquidity for 1% slippage as a sort of medium-term goal. And I believe we're getting fairly close to that now. But long-term, our debt ceiling sort of is going to be a reflection of what is considered safe to liquidate. And it's kind of hard to project what that's going to be after withdrawals are live, when we have the exit queue available for liquidations as well. However, as MakerDAO debt is a reflection of liquidity, unless we get the ability to somehow subsidize liquidity in a new way that's super capital efficient, it's unlikely that we ever see a super high debt ceiling. Unless, of course, withdrawals changes things drastically, which it very well could.
I mean, in terms of the debt ceiling, so there's a couple of things there. Obviously, we want to add as much utility to rETH as possible, but I totally respect Maker's conservative approach, because ultimately So what we saw with STETH was kind of like an unbounded debt ceiling, and so and that caused some pretty significant issues with the kind of liquidity crunch and all of that sort of thing. So I think a conservative approach on debt ceilings is perfectly fine. Obviously, we'd like as many people to be able to use this the utility as possible. So there has to be kind of some, or there's going to be some balance. And I think as we get, we are, I mean, we've been around for 12 months. So yeah, as we go, our liquidity will improve. More and more people will have rETH, and so more people will be using it in DeFi. So it will naturally kind of improve. It's just the fact that having a very high debt ceiling is something that we don't necessarily want. There is definitely a balance, because debt markets have to be very, very responsible. Debt markets make and break an ecosystem, a finance ecosystem, because if they're left unchecked, they can cause very, very significant problems.
Absolutely. Aave is kind of tied to the hip to Lido now, and if Lido goes down, Aave goes down with it. So that's not something most debt markets should be looking for. Loopring, however, has now announced that they will be supporting rETH directly in the wallet. Loopring has supported rETH trading for quite a while now, so it's nice to see that they are continuing to support integrations.
Yeah, I feel like on reading that again, I maybe could have written it a little bit better to explain what's going on, because to your point, Jasper, rETH has been available on Loopring for a while. You may recall a little while ago, I think it was as far back as September even, it was the Loopring community who voted to onboard rETH. As a result, Loopring protocol funded a liquidity pool for rETH. So that token has been available for a little while. But if you do click through to the tweet that's linked in the biweekly report, you kind of see the significance of this more recent update, where they've kind of positioned the purchase of rETH as a staking option. Of course, there's no deposit pool like we have on mainnet, but it's, I suppose, a more prominent and a more complete integration, communicating to users of that L2 that rETH represents a form of staked ETH, rather than just having it as one of many tokens they support. So it's great to see, following on from that community support, that the integration has further progressed a few weeks later.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of how Argent has stETH as their chosen asset. It's kind of nice that Loopring has picked rETH as their chosen asset.
If I recall correctly, we actually beat out 2 or 3 other quite prominent tokens. I can't remember if one of them was Lido, LDO, or STETH. I think there was a relatively big meme coin in there too. So quite an impressive turnout for rETH to kind of win that vote.
And as that vote ended, the IMC also co-incentivized some rewards. So great collaboration between communities. Moving.
Yeah, sorry. Just to add one final point, I have been chatting with the Loopring guys about further collaboration, co-marketing. We kind of paused it a little bit given everything that's been going on in the markets, and that has been the case with some other protocols. Just a bit of a hang fire until things settle down. More so on their side, and or just because there's a time and a place, and now is not really either, not necessarily that appropriate. But yeah, rest assured, this isn't simply a set and forget kind of thing. We are really keen to work with with other protocols, and some of these events, AMAs and the like, that have been talked about or discussions have kind of progressed with these other protocols should be kind of coming online or going well closer towards the end of the year.
It's awesome to hear. It's always nice to have a ramping up of integrations and partnerships. Moving on to media and marketing, we have a new Gitpo app that is going to be released based on Atlas research, and this Gitpo app is one that's also going to be rewarded to people who haven't, to more than just people who have committed to the GitHub repository. People who have been active in community discussions, whether it be on Discord, the forums, or governance chat, will also be available to claim this Gitpo app. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure. The list is coming out soon, but as you mentioned, Jasper, the bar for claiming this is relatively low. It's essentially, if you've ever engaged in discussion on Atlas-related topics, it doesn't necessarily need to be some kind of large piece of technical analysis or proposal. Every level of discussion is important in terms of pointing towards the end result, which is this very important upgrade for the Rocket Pool protocol. So it's great to be able to recognize everyone. I managed to get a tally of 30, I think it's exactly 30 people. But as we know, sometimes discussion can take place in all sorts of channels and formats, especially in Discord, with a bunch of different topics frequently leaking into trading. So I'd say there's a fairly good chance that I've not only missed a contribution somewhere, but potentially a very large contribution, maybe. If so, apologies. We've gone back to, I think it was May, in terms of trying to track down who has participated. Some of the usual kind of suspect channels that you would expect in terms of research, some of the threads under the research channel, and of course the DAO governance forum. There were certainly some community members who have gone above and beyond in terms of their contribution to Atlas. If you're frequently in the Rocket Pool Discord, I'm sure you could have a guess as to who these people would be. But yeah, great to recognize all the different contributions, and we'll have that list out for claiming shortly. So 2 points to make here. One, to reiterate, if your name is not on the list, apologies in advance. Please let me know. Again, the bar is very low, so don't hesitate to DM me or ping me, and we can get that sorted out, get you included. And then secondly, in order to receive, obviously we're going to need some details. We've got a list of what can be accepted on Discord. From memory, we had email address, obviously your wallet, an ENS, and I think GitHub handle works as well. But yeah, for more details, check out the latest post in the protocol channel on Discord.
Ken is coming in with a very important question. If I asked one Atlas, does that count for the Gitpo app?
So on that point, as part of my due diligence, I went through all, was it 571 mentions of Atlas in Discord?
Oh wow.
There's a good chance I missed a couple towards the end. It was getting a bit repetitive, but I realized that approximately half of them were Win Atlas. I from memory don't think they were included. So yeah, apologies if that was your contribution. We know that it's meaningful in its own way.
I highly doubt that Ken did anything at all beyond Ask One Atlas. It would be very out of line with his character to do meaningful work. Obviously, that's sarcasm. Ken is one of our best rocket scientists and does an incredible amount of research for the community. So, moving forward.
Yeah, I think we're going to give him. I think we're going to give him 2 of those perhaps.
He deserves it.
He did a massive amount of work on research for Atlas.
So, speaking of research and reviews, a review by ethereumpools.info showed that Rocket Pool nodes performed quite good during the merge, and in a somewhat tongue-in-cheek comment, said that they were comparable to the professionals. So, if you are listening in, if you are a Rocket Pool node operator, take pride in the fact that you, as a hobbyist, are capable of keeping up with the professionals.
So this is the same Twitter account that has flagged out when some, shall we say, significant or large parties have had their nodes go offline. I believe they alerted to Vitalik's node or people who manage it on his behalf. So yeah, it was good to see that coverage. They did a little bit of a Twitter thread recap of performance around the time of the merge. The exact quote was as you read it out, Jasper, of course, but when they put comparable to the professionals, they put professionals in quote marks. So a bit funny to see. But yeah, as we know, all the numbers are there available for anyone to review. And considering that Rocket Pool is comprised of completely permissionless global set of node operators, pretty impressive performance. So great to see someone else from outside the protocol recognizing that and commenting on it accordingly.
One of the core ideas behind some of these centralized-ish liquid staking derivatives was the idea that we need an opinionated validator set so that our Ethereum is managed by good, strong operators. However, Rocket Pool is proving that is not the case, and that a permissionless, well-designed ecosystem is perfectly capable of keeping the protocol running in perpetuity. In fact, during the recent market volatility, Rocket Pool did exceptionally well, with the smoothing pool raking in large amounts of MEV from a variety of blocks, some of them including 48 ETH rewards, 31 ETH rewards, pushing the rETH APR over 10% and causing the smoothing pool to sit currently above 300 ETH for the rewards period.
It's certainly been volatile, interesting, challenging time for the wider industry. So it's good at least to see a little bit of a silver lining here.
It really calls back to Sleety's meme of sort of the entire crypto industry burning down. But hey, our ETH is at all-time high against ETH. Protocol is growing incredibly well. What's not to love?
I'm just pulling up the... There you go, Langus.
I was going to say what I love is I quite like the fact we renamed what was the channel name before? Damn.
Memes.
Now it's now memes. It's now memes. But I quite like the fact that I can use the Rocket Pool community page to summarize all the memes. And I love the fact that we've got a meme leaderboard.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So what Darren is referring to is Haniabu's community site, where Haniabu has collected essentially the entirety of Rocket Pool's history and memes, videos, GIFs, POAPs, community contributions. It's really an incredible piece of work. It's essentially a Rocket Pool museum. So that website can be found at rocketpool.community, right? Just double check. Yes, rocketpool.community for a whole bunch of awesome content. And the meme leaderboard, I'm sure now that it is codified, is going to heat up.
Going back to that topic of market volatility and MEV, I saw an interesting comment on Twitter that I'm sure, even though we've had that celebration for ETH becoming ultrasound, if you extrapolate out the past few days of blockchain activity, there is a chance that we go back to zero, and I'm sure there's going to be some, snide comments floating around on Twitter. But put it into context, the fact that reaching back to zero, although it would be nice to say in the negatives, really means that the supply has not changed at all since the merge. And, if that's something worth criticizing, it really, I think, goes to show the strength of the Ethereum ecosystem.
That's right. I think in a few months of time, we will be looking back on this time period in a much better light. At least the undying bull in me thinks so. So, back to updates. The new documentation has been created to support current ODAP members and those being onboarded. Shout out, I believe, to Joe for putting these together. The ODAP role is in the midst of a expansion, and so Darren, actually, how is the ODAP onboarding process going, and when might we see votes for onboarding?
So I think the first one is just getting their so I think they've been running a Gorelli node. I think so. The first one is going to be very, very soon. So we'll kind of lock that in. But yeah, so it's going really well. As I said, the first one's going in. We're kind of trying to get them ready so that we can. Well, actually, we're getting them onto the test net and then kind of mainnet. So I think the first one is getting their mainnet node ready so that we can kind of onboard them.
Sweet. It's glad to finally get an ODAO member onboarded. It's definitely a nice little community rallying point, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's going to be really good.
So one of our community members, Leigh McDonald, has put together a couple guides, one of them being a 52-minute voiceover guide to setting up a mini pool, as well as a 17-minute guide without any audio, just going through the process. So if you are in the process of learning how to set up a node, or you just need some info to share, check this out. There's a link in the biweekly update on Reddit. Yeah, always great to see educational content coming out of the community.
Yeah, I agree. There's oftentimes a lot of great content that goes out on Twitter, even just within a 24-hour period. So apologies again if I happen to miss anyone's post, but this one certainly stood out to me because, as you said, Jasper, it's great to see more educational content go out in a whole lot of different formats, and it really underscores the fact that anyone can be a node operator. The fact that it can be summarized into a 17-minute YouTube video just goes to show that if you dedicate yourself to the task, it's not quite as challenging as it may first appear to be. And I know that there's a few people in the community, I'm not quite at that stage yet, but I will be soon, that may have looked at the challenge as being insurmountable, but have subsequently managed to get multiple validators up and running. So great anytime that we can encourage that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we actually have Leigh McDonald, who created the guides we were just talking about, here with us.
Hey, yeah, no, I just wanted to say it's like the guides are fantastic. I know some people learn a little better seeing the step-by-step process in a video, so that's just why I wanted to create it, just in case somebody wanted to see it happen versus just reading a guide. That was it.
Well, it's absolutely great to have as many different angles of education possible. So thank you really sincerely for your work.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Thanks so much.
And on that point, it's probably worth highlighting as well that we have great written documentation, and the two formats, right? Whether you're reading a text-based user guide or watching a video, even if they kind of convey the same information, there's that great point that was just made that people often learn or follow content in different ways. But in terms of someone who's maybe curious, would like to learn more, I feel like they're probably going to engage with the video more than reading through text-based guides. It is something that we have talked about from time to time in terms of creating more graphical content, infographics, video content. One of the concerns, of course, is that when you do have things changing so quickly, and you are potentially talking about a significant investment, right, in terms of hardware and ETH and all of that. Anything that comes out from Rocket Pool officially needs to be kept up to date. So, yeah, it's a topic that we do discuss from time to time, as I said, and I think coming up to some of these events next year, looking at withdrawals and solo staking migrations, there's perhaps some increased emphasis in making sure that the information that we have is available as much as possible. So, as always, with a lot of things, we see community members taking some great initiative to create content and complete other related tasks that help Rocket Pool. So, yeah, keep up the great work.
We have a request coming in from Zero. Zero has, or someone else has put together a Google Docs sheet in the ETH Denver channel on the Discord to sort of organize some of our Rocket Pool lodging, or how the lodging will play out. So if you are interested in going to ETH Denver and staying there, make sure you check that document out. Again, it's in the ETH Denver channel of the Discord. Bankless DAO released the recording of an AMA with Langers and Dave from last month. So if this is something you haven't yet checked out, make sure you give it a listen.
So this is the Twitter Spaces AMA you may have listened to, but there was also a video component. So the link goes through to their YouTube channel where you can watch the video. And as we've mentioned once or twice, on the Rocket Pool side, we're intending to clip this up into little segments. I had a bit of an idea earlier today on how we can push these out, but for whatever reason, you don't have the time to watch the whole video, or you want to kind of jump to one particular point, we will have these kind of clipped segments available on the Rocket Pool YouTube channel towards the end of the year. And I think also some of the stuff that Langers and Dave talk about during this AMA is a little bit different to what you'd usually hear on these community calls, where we're obviously discussing everything that's happening in the protocol. Especially some of the insights from Dave were quite interesting in terms of the history of Rocket Pool. So for anyone relatively new to the protocol, that video that Bankless DAO put out is a great resource, but also these clipped versions will hopefully be useful as well.
Bankless always puts out great content supporting Rocket Pool, so glad we have another bit of content to consume. 300,000 ETH has now been staked with Rocket Pool, while Rocket Pool maintains a 2% overall share of the beacon chain. So this is another great milestone, and they continue to fall.
Yep, certainly it's continuing a trend that we've seen. If you flick through back the last 3 or 4 bi-weeklies, ever since it merged, there's been some great numbers continuing to show some solid growth in the protocol, even with some of, I guess they are constraints, but as we know, in the not too distant future, there's going to be another huge surge of growth. I think it's just important to keep it in context, right? That we are still seeing regular performance. We might check in on the deposit pool queue and see it stuck at 5,000 ETH, but that doesn't mean that nothing's happening. As we know, with all these bot transactions, people are spinning up new mini pools. So yeah, another great milestone, as you say, Jasper, and I'm sure the future bi-weekly reports will be celebrating many more.
That is for sure. Speaking of potential avenues of great growth, during a recent interview with the Eigenlayer dev, Serenan, actually I'm not going to attempt his name, but I don't want to butcher it, the lead CTO of Eigenlayer, Bankless mentioned Rocket Pool as a similar kind of protocol that that contributes positively to Ethereum. Eigenlayer is a potential avenue for node operators to restake their ETH, offering a sort of competitive option to go against hyperstaking or the rehypothecation of ETH through lending markets. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Eigenlayer world plays out, but it's good to know that Rocket Pool is already early on in the conversation of sort of idealistic partners to Eigenlayer.
Yeah, definitely some great synergies there, and it was a little while ago now, but there has been a bit of an introductory high-level chat between the two protocols. So yeah, exciting to see going into next year, perhaps some of the possible opportunities for collaboration there.
So that brings us to the end of our bi-weekly update. We ran a little long. I wanted to go a bit into more depth about the MakerDAO vault, but that will unfortunately have to wait. If you have questions about it, please feel free to reach out to me at Twitter or on the Discord at Jasper the Friendly Ghost. In today's call, we talked a bit about how the rETH token sits a little bit above peg at a premium, yet growth continues unabated. We talked about how the grace period for the node fee recipient address is now ending. And so if your node fee recipient address is incorrect, meaning you are trying to steal MEV or do something else you're not supposed to, you will be penalized. However, if you are an honest node operator, you have nothing to worry about. We also talked about Rocket Art by Ramana.eth, a new avenue to take advantage of the rETH peg while you are spinning up a validator so that you, the node operator, can get a free up to 0.3 ETH. We also talked about the unfortunate reality of 1inch being a sort of geofencing protocol and how that creates problems for integrations, and we will have to do some more thinking about different ways we can improve the UX experience. Governance has been busy as ever, with the IMC rolling out a new partnership with Gamma for concentrated Uniswap v3 liquidity. The Optimism tokens have been deployed toward the Beethoven Expo and Velodrome on Optimism. The GMC is continuing to develop its processes for accepting and evaluating grants, while these grants have begun to pile up on the forum. So check those out. Speaking of the forum, Joe has proposed a new process for Watchtower upgrades and general ODAO related processes. So definitely make sure you give that a read. And in terms of the IMC, the period 4 budget is up with a bit of contention about the size of our Aura bribe. We are considering reducing it and are debating on how fast that reduction should take place. One of our largest ever integrations have now gone live with MakerDAO. The rETH token is now able to be used as collateral to mint DAI, one of the most important assets in all of the DeFi ecosystem. So this is a huge step forward, and glad this is finally live. No more 2 weeks. Loopring has continued to show their support of rETH in their platform. The 1-year anniversary of Rocket Pool POAP was met with a surprise reward of a refund as well as free RPL. So thank you, Patricio and Superfizz. Git POAP is releasing an Atlas-based POAP, so this will be released to both community members and GitHub contributors. So if you talked about Atlas, make sure you are on this list. EthereumPools.info compared the Rocket Pool node operators to the professionals in a bit of a tongue-in-cheek moment, and new documentation is out to support ODAO members. The recent volatility in the market has meant that rETH APR has surged to over 10%, while the smoothing pool sits at over 300 ETH. The community has put together some great content with Haniabu's rocketpool.community site, a sort of museum of all things rocket pool, and some great guides by Leigh McDonald about setting up a validator. We also have content coming out of Bankless with an AMA from Langers and Dave last month, and as well as mentioning Rocket Pool in an interview with Eigenlayer. Finally, Rocket Pool has passed 300,000 ETH staked as growth continues despite the bear market. Thank you for listening in. That was our call.
Thank you very much, Jasper. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.
Great speaking to you guys.
Cheers, guys. See ya.